Today's guest is Beth PopNikolov, CEO at Venveo. Beth, thank you for coming back and joining us on the show.
Man, happy to be here. Glad that you were willing to have me back.
You're great. I mean, you're always, you're out there. You're very active. I see you, going to events, staying very close to what's happening within the building materials industry and the construction industry as well. So I'm looking forward to catching up.
Me too.
Perfect. So, in a nutshell, since we've talked, I don't know exactly the number of years. It must be like 3 or 4 years. I'm not sure.
That's about what I would say. Yeah, 3 or 4.
Yeah. In your mind, what has changed with you, the practice? What are some key things?
It's been an interesting year post-COVID. Interesting year. I should say, it's been an interesting era post-COVID in building materials because we felt so many waves of competing changes and challenges. There's huge surge in demand, huge supply chain issues, dips in demand, increases in competition, increases in pricing, shifting around of loyalty, acquisitions abound. I mean, there's what hasn't changed, I think is a better way to say it. At the same time, though, I was in this conversation recently, just within the last month or so, with one of the largest Caterpillar dealer owners, and they're a generational. I think they're 4th generation owners, and we were talking about all of those things. And even this year, everybody, every single sales earnings are down from the largest retailers across the board. No one is immune. And just very calmly was like, "We've weathered these storms before. We'll weather this one. It's the cyclical world that we live in. That's the life that we've chosen. It is, time marches on." And it was just such a stable pillar moment for me, thinking back and reflecting on all of the change and all of the kind of upheaval that's happened. Because tides come in and tides come out. At the same time, anytime you talk to somebody individually, the feeling is always optimism. We often hear, I know that, Lowe's came out and their numbers are down, Beacon, Home Depot, everybody's numbers are down. We seem to be having an okay year. Everybody's always optimistic about what's ahead, which is one of the wonderful things about our industry. So I think it's kind of everything and nothing has changed. Is that fair to say?
It is. And having sort of gone through different things myself, I wonder, sometimes I wonder what fundamentals still are good, and then what's any hints of maybe you need to change something, maybe not something drastic,
Yeah.
but slightly. So I mean, do you kind of have that? I mean, generally I like to say if you've gone through tough stuff, you don't want to overreact, but
Yeah.
I mean, what sort of telltale signs is for you that change needs to occur?
That's a really great question. One of our unofficial values is lean in. I really believe that when we get really hard feedback from a client, it's very easy to say, they're just unreasonable. We're working really hard. There's always something to be gleaned. Almost always is maybe more accurate. There's almost always something to be gleaned from every situation, no matter how difficult, how unreasonable, how fair. And so for me, when I feel like if the chips are stacked against us, or us in any particular arena, my reaction is, what is the situation telling us? What do we need to take from the situation? Because it's very easy to deflect. Everybody is working as hard as they possibly can. Everybody's life is always full. I don't know a lot of people. I don't know about you, Tats. I don't know a lot of people that are like, you know what? I'm just overloaded with extra money and free time and peace and harmony and plenty of sleep and financial security. And do you know what I mean? Like, nobody feels that way.
Yeah, you have to stay on it.
Yeah. And so
Cool.
it's what can we learn?
Yeah.
And being ready to say, okay, we're going to continue to push into what we really truly believe in, because that's the only way, right? The indicators you're asking, what tells you something needs to change? You've got to take the feedback of how do we pivot. But if the only feedback is this is really hard or this is pressure, that usually tells you you're on the right track.
Got it. Give me an example, something that you've kind of were proud of, like internally, where you say, "Hey, look, we saw this, we learned something, we made a change, and this is what we tell the team because we know we can get through other things. What's a story that you go to that's more recent?
That's a great question. I have at this point in my career, I have tons. There's one that we talk about quite a lot. So in I would say the first year of my tenure as CEO and and the year previous, we as a company decided, we as an executive team decided and looked around and said, okay, how do we become even better? Like, how do we grow and retain clients better? And our conclusion was we promised people that we are going to get them results in marketing. We are going to go as hard after having the best data driven, results driven people that we possibly can at the forefront of client interactions. Because if we tell you we're going to get results and we get you results, we will retain you. You wouldn't believe it, but that's actually not true. We had some of the highest client churn that we'd ever had by making that bet. And we did a lot of research, talked to a lot of people and even read these several different books, of course. And one of them is called The Boutique by a gentleman named David. And I can never remember his last name because it's a little bit complicated. Not that I should, not that I have any room to talk about complicated last names. But his name is David. And it was the most frustrating book I've ever read in my life because it was like reading exactly the opposite of what we had decided and very clear that we should have done what he said we should do. And so what he says essentially is the service cannot be separated from the person delivering the service. And we are a service company. We are a service-based company. We are here to service the client. And for some clients, that might be you only care about results and you never ever want to see me. If you don't like me, you don't trust the results. If you hate showing up to a meeting where I'm going to tell you that we made you a bunch of money, eventually you're going to stop showing up to those meetings. And it wasn't that anybody hated anybody or that who we'd obviously had not hired, not unpersonable people or people that weren't very nice or anything like that. They were very nice, but their goal was not relationship oriented. Their goal was results. And so we had to vocally make a hard pivot in the organization and say, we have put all of our eggs in the basket of results. We can't take that out because we do have to actually get results. What we have to do is focus on the way that we deliver the results, the experience that you have getting to the results is almost more important than the results itself.
Got it. You got to enjoy the process because no matter
Exactly.
what, it's sort of a grind.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. There's almost no results I can get you to make you feel like that was easy. Like it's not. It's very hard work. And so we've got to like working together in order to get there.
Yeah. I mean, within marketing business, what's like one trend or something that's like overhyped, and what's one thing that is overlooked?
Oh, that is the best question. Oh, that's really thoughtful. Okay. I think what's overhyped currently is that AI is going to take everybody's job, or especially from a marketing standpoint. Um, because, you can have AI write things for you. I tested around with version of a website where you just put in a low key chat GPT prompt and it designs a website with copy in like 30 seconds. Now, would I launch that website? No. Like it's not, beta is the key word here. So I think it's overhyped in that it has the ability to replace what is really good and thoughtful marketing. It actually, to me, more highlights how casually we take our marketing if we think that that can be replaced, because you wouldn't replace it for sales conversations. Now, follow up emails with highlights from your transcript from your last phone call, sure, get some input, no problem. But can it completely undo and redo an entire industry for any particular vertical? I'm not just talking about marketers, for everywhere. Of course not. So I think which I actually think it's also underutilized because of that. Because you kind of are either all in and you think this guy can do everything, and then you read people's blogs and you're like, that was weird. Or because you either don't believe in it or think it's going to be fake or are worried it's going to take your job, you don't use it at all. And so you are having yourself continually do these repetitive tasks that could very easily be taken over by AI without ever replacing, creative thought and strategic thought and actual creativity and human effort.
Oh, no, I love that. No, that's very cool. Um, yeah, I mean, with what you do, like, because obviously, like you said, the environment is changing all the time. I mean, how do you stay close to it? What do you do? I see you, going to events and stuff like that, but how do you stay on top of it, and sort of stay connected to what's going on?
It's actually what I consider to be one of our main jobs is our position as Venveo is to be the forerunner in technology for the building material space. And so that kind of helps is that it's our job. And so we have to spend really dedicated time to it. So there's a couple of things that we do. Number one is we watch for interrupters. We watch for industries that are getting disrupted to see who's disrupting it, how are you disrupting it. We follow things that go viral or that get a ton of buzz, not because we think that virality is the answer for marketing strategy, but because it tells you something about what catches people's attention, what gets somebody to share something, what makes somebody think about something again after they've seen it. And we could, because we don't want vanity metrics, right? If I tell you I got you 3 million views on your video, that's going to feel really good. If that doesn't quickly translate into leads and sales, I don't really care. If there were 3 million video views or 300 views, I care about the leads and sales that we've generated from it. And often in our industry, you don't need very many because it's just about the right audience. So that's one part is we're watching kind of the really big global picture of marketing. And part of that is filtering what matters and doesn't matter now, today, tomorrow, and in 5 years for our industry. And then the other part is we have intentionally, we call them the watchmen of the watchmen on the walls for each of our department leads. It's their responsibility to be the watchman for whatever their particular channel is and report into our company to say, hey, TikTok just got banned by Congress. It hasn't moved through. We think it's going to get vetoed or we think it's going to get signed, but it's not really going to matter. Or Instagram just launched that they changed their algorithm, or SEO, Google's going to have a core algorithm update. This is what's going to happen. That's part of that is one of their main responsibilities as the lead of their department, because we need to know so that we formulate strategies correctly. And we need to know so that we inform clients. Particularly Google core algorithm updates are a great example because as a client, if I tell you a month in advance, hey, in February, Google is going to have a core algorithm update. These are the things that we know. This is how we anticipate it impacting you. We obviously will never totally know until it's out. That's a very different conversation compared to a month after it happens, and you're upset that your organic traffic is down, and now it looks like I'm deflecting and defending and
Sure.
covering and
If you
saying,
know that
"Don't worry about it. It was Google."
Yeah, if you know that like July, August, they're like messing around a lot, then you can give people the heads up. I mean, I'm assuming in some of these areas you do enough buys and stuff that you have account managers directly with these organizations. Is that correct?
So
Like
we
from the other side, right?
Yeah, so we think that I obviously can't see what everybody owns, but from a media standpoint, it's our understanding that we own and control the most media buying in the industry outside of Home Depot or Lowe's or like a particular
Yeah.
retailer buying on top of for
So
their
you
suppliers.
have direct people from Google that you can contact directly, right? Because I know after a certain volume level, they care enough about you to be able to answer questions. I'm assuming you're that with a few of these platforms.
Yes, we have mixed feelings about having that, if I could be honest.
It's a good and a bad thing.
Yeah,
You're just kind of more observing what's
yeah,
actually occurring.
yeah, exactly.
Very cool. Anything else? Like, let's say a company's not working with you, and or a firm, right? What's the case of in-house versus outside,
Oh,
and
it's a really good
or
question.
kind of the blend? What? How do you walk me through situational stuff in and around that?
So I firmly believe that a blend is the best case scenario. You have to have boots on the ground. There's so much that you need to have an immediate person there to have a regular pulse on your culture, especially for things like social media where it needs to be really timely and you want to be able to capture a great board meeting or a training or do some really cool, if your manufacturing site is on your office at the same site as your office, you can get some really incredible content. I'm a firm believer in it needs to be both. Um, because that's the way that you can have it be the most authentic. I also am a really firm believer in having outside input, which I know sounds, of course, you are. But truly, I think the worst thing that can happen is to not have any outside input. That's why we look at other industries outside of building materials to understand what's the best and what's the up and coming and how do we break through the noise for our clients. Because if we only looked in building materials, there's no new ideas. We're always going to be thinking that what we're doing is the best. We're not going to have any input to tell us that there is an ability to continually grow or change or evolve. And our customers are looking at those other sources. And you can't possibly look everywhere, right? So that outside voice in one capacity or another, it doesn't mean that outside voice has to execute on anything. Doesn't mean that you even have to pay them. I would definitely make sure that my team was spending a lot of time in like taking in what outside voices were saying, because if it's only ever internal, who's the person in there to say this isn't, we're only doing what we've always done, or this is not going to work and here's how I know it's not going to work. So I truly believe in the best of the both worlds is the blend.
Yeah, for sure. What industry or what market move has been interesting to you most recently?
Home Depot purchasing SRS is really interesting. I know, is that a cheap answer? Maybe that's a cheap answer. uh,
Well, you can be very specific on why you find it interesting.
I find it interesting because, well, I find it interesting in a particular light. So I was presenting at a national sales meeting recently for a large franchise window dealer, and their 99% of their customers are homeowners. At the same time, their largest competitor, or one of their largest competitors, is Home Depot. And so the reason I find it interesting is because my whole conversation, or a lot of what we talked about, is Home Depot doesn't care about homeowners. And please don't come at me, Home Depot. I'm sure that you do and you're nice and like whatever. But I'm like, well, you can tell by the way that they're investing their dollars. They are betting on the pro. They're very pro driven. They're very open about that. And so I find it really interesting that there are innumerable businesses, innumerable dealers and manufacturers who are continually competing with them when they are singularly focused on who they're going after. I also think it's really interesting because it kind of feels like they didn't have a plan.
Yeah, it feels a little bit that way. I mean, someone did mention something around SRS being able to establish certain verticals around roofing or other kind of trade related verticals, but I don't know how much they could do with that.
Yeah, and my understanding from what they paid for SRS was unprecedented. So there must be opportunity there that people who are much smarter than I am and have spent a lot more time thinking about it than I have understand that I don't, and that's totally fine. We interviewed a pretty major builder, or no, sorry, a pretty major roofer, pretty right after the SRS acquisition about the SRS acquisition, and he said two really key things in that interview that I have thought about nonstop since. One, he said they don't realize how much we all talk, like as roofers, which is a thing that if you're on the outside of our industry feels very odd, that people who are absolutely competitors are going after the exact same lead and telling that lead why you should not work with the other person, and then like they all go get a beer and share trade secrets about how to build their businesses because that's what we do. He said they don't understand how much they talk, and he said if they make us purchase roofing through Home Depot, we will leave. He's like, we won't do it. And I thought that was the first time that I was like, you didn't have a plan.
Yeah.
You underestimate how much pain our customer is willing to take on in order to do what they think is going to be best.
Yeah.
And so I just think it's very interesting to watch. I'm sure it will work out. It's just a very interesting thing to watch.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Love that. Is there anything that I didn't ask but that you wanted to share about what you're doing or any topic?
You tell me, Tats, you're talking to people all the time. What are you hearing? What am I not talking about that you ask people and they're mentioning a lot?
Very good question. I'm just really I mean, for me, like, it's just the impact of weather, right? And the
Oh,
technologies around
right.
that are fascinating. It's just
Yeah.
having more and more of an impact on everything. And these technologies are becoming more and more accessible to roofers and contractors for various reasons. And I just think that it's going to have more and more of an impact. Just because there's so many extreme weather situations that
Yeah.
are occurring, and I think a lot of companies don't know how to handle some of those things, right? So they haven't thought through what implications those have.
That's very thoughtful. I 100% concur, and absolutely something that feels difficult to get your arms around maybe because it's shifting so much, and to say you know where it's going to go or how it's going to evolve, it's really interesting.
Yeah, and I just see that, there's just more effort to stay close to that overall
Yeah,
as industry. So.
that's great. That's really cool.